Hey everyone. So today we're going to be going over SketchUp Part 2. We will be introduced to navigating a 3D model, drawing simple geometry using SketchUp's default drafting tools, and explaining how to select single edges, faces, or entire shapes. So before we get started, I wanted to kind of talk about what SketchUp is and how it's typically used in the field of landscape architecture. So SketchUp is a 3D visualization tool that allows designers to quickly draft and design in 3D space. This software has become increasingly popular in many workplaces due to its quick drafting capabilities and relatively easy learning curve. SketchUp is a great tool at creating quick conceptual level visualizations that allow clients to better understand a design's intent. At this point in time, however, SketchUp is not usually a viable 3D software for things such as construction documentation on a large-scale landscape architecture project. So simply put, if you're just looking to visualize a design concept, SketchUp is going to be a great tool for that. But if your project is in need of accurate construction level detail, I would suggest picking up skills in Autodesk Revit or Rhinoceros 3D. Luckily for landscape architecture, picking up skills in all three of these softwares is something you probably want to do. So we'll go over SketchUp now, and this would be a great tool for you to pick up early on in your process. So let's get started. So to start out, we're going to look at navigation, and I'm going to make a quick suggestion that if you don't have a computer mouse at this point, not a laptop mouse pad, but a real computer mouse, I would suggest getting one of those because it's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to be increasingly less difficult to move around in a 3D model. So with navigation, there are typically three types of navigation in a 3D model. There's zooming in and out with the mouse wheel. And if you notice in the bottom left, you can see my mouse inputs. So we can zoom in, we can zoom out with the middle mouse scroll wheel. And then there is also rotating. So by clicking in on the middle mouse button, we can rotate the model and look at it from different angles. And then the last method of navigation is panning. So panning is something that you can do in AutoCAD, and it's pretty much the exact same concept here. So if you hold in the middle mouse button and hold Shift at the same time, you can simply move around the screen like this, and this is called panning. So again, middle mouse button and Shift will allow you to pan the screen. So that wraps up navigation. So now we're going to look at drawing simple geometry using the pencil, rectangle, circle, and any other default tools that SketchUp gives us. So before we start drafting anything, I want to talk about the importance of drawing on an axis. And what I mean by that is drawing on the green, red, and blue axis here. So to explain these axes real quick, the green axis is typically your north and south directions, and the red is usually your east and west directions, with the blue being up and down. These are important because they allow you to draw in set positions. So let's say I wanted to draw a perfectly square box. I can choose the line tool, which looks like the pencil. I'm going to start at the origin, and then if you notice on the keyboard inputs, if I press the left arrow key, it locks my drawing direction to the green axis. If I press the right arrow key, it locks my drawing axis, or my drawing direction to the red axis. And if I press the up arrow key, it locks my drawing direction to the up and down axis. So to start my box, I'm going to click the origin, lock my direction to the green, and I'm going to make this a 200 by 200 foot square box. So if you notice at the bottom right of the screen where it says length, I'm going to type 200, and then I'm going to give that symbol the apostrophe for feet. If I did the double apostrophe or the quotation marks, that would mean 200 inches. In this case, I want the 200 feet, and then I'm going to hit enter, and you'll notice that that black line has showed up, and then I'm going to lock my direction on the red axis by hitting the right arrow key. Do 200 again, hit enter, and then I can select the green axis again and just draw it back to the origin, and then from this point just draw to the origin itself. And then what you'll notice is that I connect all these 4 lines. It draws a perfect box and it gives me this face here. So in SketchUp, any shape is made up of a closed polyline and a face. So this applies for any shape. So what we can do is start to explore some of the other drawing options and tools on SketchUp. So I'm going to select this rectangle tool. I'm going to start drawing on our red axis here. And instead of drawing each line individually, we can draw an entire rectangle. So I'm going to do, again, a 200 by 200 box. So 200 feet, comma 200 feet. And it'll give me the same shape, but I didn't even have to draw each individual line. It just drew the entire box itself. And then we also have polygons and circles. So I'm going to select the circle tool. And when I select that, you'll notice in the bottom right down here, it says sides. This means how many individual lines the circle is going to be made up of. So I'm going to choose, 50 for now. And I'm going to start on the red line. And for this one, I'm just going to draw that straight out. You can see that it's connecting my radius 200 feet like the box. And I'm just going to click and draw that circle. And then next is the polygon tool. So the polygon tool is right next to the circle. I'm going to select it. And again, we can see the sides. In this case, I'm going to do 8 sides. Again, start drawing on the red axis direction. And then I'm going to connect the radius at 200 as well, just like the other shapes. And it'll draw that entire shape for me. So now that we know a little bit about drawing different 2D shapes, let's get into, giving these shapes some 3D volume. So what I'm going to do now is hit the push-pull tool, which is right here. It looks like a little box with a red arrow pulling it up. So I'm going to select it. And let's extrude the circle. So what I'm going to do is select the circle and just move it up. You can see that in the bottom right, it's showing me the distance of how many feet I'm pulling it up. And I'm going to pull it up 12 feet. And this applies for any 2D shape that you can find that's completely flat. So let's pull up the squares. You can pull them up, pull them down, or pull up any other shape. And you can even adjust it to the exact same height as another shape. So you can see that as I'm pulling it up, I can adjust the mouse to come to this corner of the square, and we can pull it up to the exact same height as the first box we drew. Now I'm going to talk about healing geometry. And what I mean by that is, let's say we go in here and delete this top face of this box, and it'll show us that this box is completely hollow. That's how all shapes are in SketchUp. So what we can do is, if we want that face to come back, we can select our line tool and draw from corner to corner, and it will auto regenerate that face to come back. Finally is the selection tools in SketchUp. So if you will press the selection tool, which is the black arrow at the top corner, we can start selecting some of these faces and edges. So you'll notice that you can select individual faces or edges and lines. You can also select multiple edges or faces at a time. So let's say we select this face. If we hold Shift, we can also select the surrounding edges. We can select this face. We can select different geometries on other shapes as well. And they're all highlighted in this dotted grid or this blue selection line. This is important when you want to move or edit geometries. So there are also different ways of selecting things. So if you single click a face, it will just select that single item. But if you double click, it will select that face and the surrounding edges that make up that geometry. But if you triple click, it will select every piece of geometry, so either face or edge, that makes up that entire shape. This is important when we want to move geometry. So let's say I want to move this face I can select it and move it this way. I can also select this line and move it up, which will transform this shape like that. And then we can also move the entire shape or geometry. So if we triple click, it will select the entire shape. We can select our move tool and move the entire shape around like this. So my advice at this point in the process is to just kind of play around with the default SketchUp shapes. Draw a few boxes, learn how to input specific dimensions in the bottom right corner. So 200 feet by 200 feet. Just kind of learn how to do that. And then also just kind of explore some free-form abstract shapes. So maybe we can select our line tool and draw, you know, any shape. We can bring that up and make it into 3D space. Again, just kind of select the line tool and draw another abstract shape and see what you can come up with. Yeah, so for now, just kind of explore the options in SketchUp and have some fun. All right, so that wraps up SketchUp Part 2, where we looked into navigation, geometry, and selection. So reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.